Good afternoon. Wonderful to be here with everyone. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Lemonade. Lemonade is an insurance company that was founded just a short while ago. We've been live in the US where we operate for only 15 months. And we established Lemonade as a new kind of insurance company, and it is a company. In other words, we're the carrier, we're the risk bearer, we write on our own paper, we develop the entire technological stack from scratch, but also the business model, the data sets, and the way the operation runs. Now, why start a company from scratch? Why go back to the basics? Well, we believe that an insurance company today should be founded on two pillars: behavioral economics and artificial intelligence. That the substrate of the insurance companies for the next century is going to be different from the substrate that served insurance companies for the last. Let me explain why. And to do so, I'm going to start going back 700 years to 14th century Florence, where Francesco finds himself writing a letter to his wife, and he says the following: "It is sweet to them to take the monies," he's writing about insurance companies, "it is sweet to them to take the monies, but when disaster comes, it is otherwise. Each man draws his rump back and strives not to pay." Now, I confess I don't know exactly what that means, but I don't think it's a compliment. And of course, it's tempting to say, well, that's the Italians, and it's the 13th century, and a lot has changed. And then you zoom forward 700 years to the crowdsourced dictionary, the Urban Dictionary, and you see that for the last 10 years, the number one definition for insurance has been this: a business that involves selling people promises to pay later that are never fulfilled. Channeling Francesco, but in a modern vernacular. And for good measure, they add in usage of the word. Goma paid flood insurance premiums for years, but then the insurer decided to go out of business when the flood came because management had spent all the premiums on hookers and private jets. So if you want the pulse of the people, you want to know what do people really think about insurance companies, go to the Urban Dictionary and you get a sense of things. It's not a pretty sight. Which drove us to the conclusion that just sprinkling some technology, pixie dust style, on top of a 100-year-old edifice is not going to affect profound change. If you want to affect profound change, you're really going to start at the fundamentals. You've got to change the fundamental underlying business model, because this kind of distrust that consumers for centuries have voiced towards insurance companies really corrodes the entire experience and costs an absolute fortune. So if you look at surveys that have been done, this thing's not working. There we go. CNN reports 25% of Americans think it's okay to embellish their claims. 25%. I like to quip that the other 75% were brought up not to admit that kind of thing to strangers. But this is remarkable because every company, certainly every tech company, faces the threat of fraudulent behavior. But typically it's the hacker from some distant country who's going to hack in through some system or other and steal their credit cards. With insurance, that's not the problem. The problem, guys, is us. Insurance fraud is committed by people who are otherwise law-abiding citizens. If you chart their behavior, they're kind of boring and law-abiding citizens. Then it comes to insurance, they let the devil out, and then they go back to their daily life of being law-abiding citizens. And then that begets the question, why is it that when it comes to insurance, we all feel so entitled to embellish our claims? What is about insurance that is so corrupting? Well, one of our founding team members is Professor Dan Ariely, who studied this for 10 years. He wrote a book called The Honest Truth About Dishonesty. We'll see an excerpt from a movie of it. And he concluded that if you set out with the express intention of bringing out the absolute worst in humanity, you'd end up with something that looks disturbingly like an insurance company. Now, his book, as I say, was turned into a feature-length movie. I'm going to show you a 2-minute excerpt. In order for you to follow the bit that we're going to see, let me just give you a little bit of background. So in trying to understand honesty and dishonesty, Dan Ariely conducted an experiment where people have to answer maths problems, and then they self-mark when the answers are revealed to them. They come to the front of the hall, they shred the papers, and then they declare how many they got right. I got 7 answers right, and the guy there counts out $7. His shredder was doctored so that it was really scanning the pages rather than shredding them. And that gave him a baseline upon which to see how honest or dishonest people are. In the short excerpt that I'm just going to show you, we're going to see 2 variants of that baseline experiment. And just note how tiny changes can either double fraudulent behavior or knock it out altogether.
My name is Dan Orieli, and I'm interested in human behavior. And in the last few years, we've been focusing on dishonesty. As long as we cheat just a little bit, we don't have to pay any price in terms of the image and the way we view ourselves. And we call this the fudge factor. So this is the ability to misbehave and think of ourselves as good people. And you can think about all kinds of ways in which in your own life you have a fudge factor. The speed limit. Maybe it says 55, but are you okay in driving 60? What about cheating a little bit on taxes? What about exaggerating their online dating profile? Across many studies, we find that everything that changes the fudge factor also changes people's ability to be dishonest. There are dozens of elements that can change the magnitude of the fudge factor. And we've been able to observe many of them in the lab. So imagine the same experiment I described earlier. You fill in your sheets, you solve these little problems, you shred the piece of paper, and you come to the experimenter. You tell them how much money you deserve. You tell it in tokens. I solve X problems, I deserve X tokens. So now you pay them in pieces of plastic. They take this piece of plastic, walk 12 feet to the side, and change it for dollars. So when somebody looks you in the eyes and they lie, they don't lie for money, they lie for something else, but that thing becomes money very quickly. What happened? In our experiment, people doubled their cheating.
There we go.
Thank you. We went to UCLA and we asked about 500 undergrads to try and recall the 10 Commandments. How many of them do you think recalled all 10 Commandments? Zero, that's right. By the way, they invented lots of interesting ones. What happened after people tried to recall the 10 Commandments, even if they were unsuccessful? Nobody cheated.
Okay, so you can see how in architecting a business, you can architect in order to bring out the best in people and the worst in people, and how small changes, priming in game theory speak, or signaling, and other areas that social sciences have developed greatly in the last 10 years can change things a great deal. And to try and bring that about, we established a different kind of insurance company. We really changed the business model. And whereas insurance companies typically find themselves in conflict with their customers, we managed to create a business model that allows you to make money without having to be in conflict with their customers. And the way that works is as follows. Typically in an insurance company, if you claim $1,000 of me, if I pay those $1,000, it's $1,000 less to me. I'm in a direct conflict of interest. You and I are fighting over the same coin. At Lemonade, it works differently. We've taken a page out of Silicon Valley. It's spiritually, we're a tech company rather than an insurance company, although we are a regulated insurance company. And what we say is you give us $1,000, 200 of those are ours. We take a flat fee. Claim, don't claim, we're never going to take more, we're never going to take less. And in a sense, we isolate or insulate ourselves from the risk of the claims and the claims behavior. And the way we do that is we say, if there's money left over, we're not going to keep it. Keeping that money is what puts us in conflict with you in the first place. It poisons the well, and we don't want any part of it. So we're going to give it to charity, and why don't you tell us which charitable organization you'd like us to give it to? If there's insufficient funds, well, we use some of the money every year to buy reinsurance, and the reinsurers will have a bad year, but our 20% is going to be insulated. And in fact, we established Lemonade as a public benefit corporation. We're a certified B Corp, and the impact that Sir Ronald spoke about is really imbued into the very business model that Lemonade has established. Let me show you what that looks like to the consumer. We'll show you a 90-second sped-up version of the app. Do look out for those cues, both the business model, the give back, and for how we pay claims as well, all of this being driven entirely by AI. And you see how the behavioral economics and the artificial intelligence meld together to create something quite different and new. Thank you so much. What you saw there, AI Jim paying claims very quickly. Fully a third of our claims today are paid within 3 seconds of you pressing submit on your cell phone. Now, what you see that doing is combining the cost-crushing power of AI, but also using behavioral economics to raise the level of trust. If you are basically in conflict with your customer, you don't want to pay them straight away. You don't trust them, they don't trust you. There's a cycle, a tit for tat, of distrust that spirals onwards and downwards, and we're trying to change that. In fact, 5% of the claims that we pay today in recent months have found, we've found the claimant coming back to us and saying, hey, Lemonade, I actually found that laptop. How do I return the money to you? We've had 5% of claimants. A lot of our team have come out of the insurance space. They've never heard of somebody who's received money from an insurance company saying, how do I give it back? But we've seen that happening time and again. Thank you. And what we've seen since our launch is that, in general, the social impact, that idea that the experience is unconflicted, that there's a charitable component to it, has really helped us at a fundamental level, both in bringing out better behavior in our customers, neutralizing our temptation, because we don't think that we are in any way, that our moral fiber is in any way superior to that of other insurance companies. We've tried to change the game. It's not the players that are at fault, it's the game itself. And we've just put temptation out of our reach. So we can't make money by denying your claims. The claimants are less motivated to embellish their claims. And what we found is that that has also spawned lower cost of acquisition, higher word of mouth, higher virality. And we're seeing people tweet about insurance. Typically, when somebody tweets about insurance, it's an expletive. It's not the kind of thing that insurance companies are happy about. We're finding claimants or customers tweeting about 3 things, because they don't want to tweet about insurance. That's boring. But they'll tweet about cool tech. So the experience was amazing. I did it in 60 seconds. I was so cool. The bar is set so low that people are positively surprised all the time. The second one is value. This isn't the place to develop the theme, but we're able to charge 60, 70, sometimes 80% less for first-time renters and millennials because the overheads are so much lower when you're using technology to do your distribution. And the third thing is not just the value, but the values. People love talking about being socially impactful, and that helps spread the word as well. Lemonade has been out for only 15 months. It's still early days. Insurance companies take a while to mature. But so far, growth has been exponential. We're now licensed in 27 states throughout the US and looking this year already to begin our global expansion. Thank you so much for your attention, guys.